I'd love to know, we have the same mug. We have the same mug.
This was meant to happen.
My name is Nadia, and I'm a Brooklyn-based artist, filmmaker, and the host of Sahtain. I use art, food, and healing spaces to redefine what it means to nourish ourselves. As a Palestinian American living in diaspora, I connect to my roots through our cuisine. There are many others like me who grew up far from our ancestral lands. You could call us third culture kids. The scents, tastes, and unique memories made in the kitchen ground us and connect us to each other. Come with me on a journey of remembrance as we explore third culture kitchens and the plant allies that bring us home. Sage, or maramiya in Arabic, is one of the most familiar and sacred plants of our heritage. It's known for its balancing energy and its ability to soothe both the body and spirit. For Amani Atallah, a paramedic and herbalist, maramiya played a key role in her return home to her roots.
I knew that it would be really special to drink maramiya together today, because this is a very, very special one.
It really, really is. It's like one of the most nostalgic herbs that I work with. I feel it so viscerally too, just the memory of my grandmother. Chicago really is where I kind of identify as being from. Like, I'm a Chicagoan, My mother's side is from Jerusalem. My mom was actually born and raised in Chicago. It was her parents that are from Palestine. My dad's side is from Silwan. I was raised by my grandparents. I would do anything to have another cup of coffee or a tea with them and just sit and actually listen. At the time, you don't realize that there'll come a time in a day that you won't have the privilege of sitting down and listening to their stories. But when you're young, I feel like sometimes you don't appreciate those things. When I was 16, I took an interest to public service. I went and got my EMT license when I was 18. And then 2 years later, I got my paramedic license. After about 12 years in EMS, I'm still working as a paramedic. And it is the most, challenging, rewarding thing I've ever done in my entire life. Over the last year, I've noticed that there was a tug and a pull for something more. I've had digestive issues for as long as I remember, and just kind of came to a point where I'm like, I need to work. I need to figure out how I can help and heal myself. That was the major driving force to reconnecting with this herbs, and especially actually maramiya, which is an amazing digestive herb. The whole reason why I started Herbalist was because I was trying to connect with a lot of my grandparents' stories, especially my grandmother's, and just watching her growing up use herbs and use food to heal. She was my driving force for rediscovering herbs and herbal medicine and kind of reconnecting with a lot of my roots. The thing about herbal medicine is that it's so good for those chronic subclinical conditions where it's nothing acute, it's nothing that's going to harm you in this exact moment, but rather these issues that maybe you've seen a doctor for and they're like, oh yeah, there's really nothing wrong with you, everything is great, and just, drink a lot of water and take your fiber, what I mean? That's where I think herbal medicine really truly shines, because I do work in modern medicine and in particular emergency medicine. I feel like I have a relatively balanced feel when one would work over the other. I do love to incorporate the two. I think they're both synergistic, and I don't believe one is superior than the other. They shine in different times. After my grandparents passed away, I separated a little bit from the culture and, identifying as Palestinian. But this is more recently where I have started to reconnect. And it came around the same time where, I was experiencing some medical issues and I was kind of reconnecting with some of the herbs that my grandmother used. And that kind of led me to listening to stories again and looking up pictures again and like, oh my gosh, like, I'm Palestinian. Like this is a beautiful thing. Maramiya is a very comforting herb for me. And like I mentioned earlier, it's very nostalgic. When I would be feeling under the weather, whether it was digestion issues or just colds or flus or whatnot, I remember that being such a popular herb in my grandmother's house. It's even known as the herb of wisdom too, because it helps with memory. It's a neurotropic, so it really helps with cognition and memory. Because it's antimicrobial, a lot of people use it for certain like mouth conditions. If they have like some sort of like a canker sore, or you're having a sore throat or whatnot, anything, tonsillar. There's actually a study to show that it's actually really effective as a mouthwash. So instead of using something that has maybe a lot of alcohol in it, you can use a solution with sage, and that will help kind of clean some of the bacteria that can sometimes plague the oral cavity. But I also remember it being served when we'd have people over, metamia, because it aids in digestion and it helps kind of produce bile so you can break down fats. My grandmother would serve it specifically after these large meals.
I too had a lot of like anxious stomach and digestive issues. Like I always have, I still do. Metamia has always been the medicine for that, and similarly, after any large meals, any feeling of stomach is like not settled, not happy.
To me, when I smell it, when I use it as a hot infusion, it's very balancing to me. So if I'm feeling a little bit of a heightened emotional state, just the scent of sage infusing in some hot water just helps kind of balance my perspective, balance my emotions, like, okay, everything's going to be okay. And even just sipping on it is very regulating and balancing too internally.
I make it for my Western friends and they're like, oh my God, I just feel so relaxed. And I'm like, you feel good now, right? There have been so many times that I've really been in need and sage has like been there for me. It does reduce anxiety to like just inhale the scent of it and the smell of it.
I think it's about a month ago. We ordered fries from like this place and they had sage in the fries. And it was just oh my God, yes. I would like to actually use sage more as a complementary herb for things like potatoes. Excellent.
So maybe we'll do that, something like that for the show. Dang. Oh,
you should.
That.
Ahlan wa sahlan bikum and welcome. Today we are working with our dear friend sage, or in Arabic we like to call it maramiye. Maramiye, which many of us know as the tea, is one of the most healing and supportive plants that we have and that we work with. I know that many of us are very familiar with having a heavy meal and ending the night with a cup of beautiful maramiye tea, just dried sage in water, which might be my favorite way to consume it. This tea has just such a comforting aroma and is so settling and nourishing for the body. Truly one of our wisest traditions that we have. In my conversation with Amani, we talked at length about how maramiye tea just grounded us in our roots. For her, it connects her with her grandmother. For me, it connects me with my grandmother, my mother. It's a very maternal lineage plant for me as well. Amani also gave me the inspiration today to make sage roasted potatoes based on these sage fries that she mentioned to me. So we are going to make a beautiful garlicky sage roasted potato dish. It's gonna be delicious, it's gonna be wonderful. I have a mixture of Dutch gold potatoes and purple potatoes just for prettiness and color, and I've chopped them into quarter-sized pieces that are all about the same size. We put them in a pot of salty boiling water and boiled them until they are fork tender to the degree that we want them to be. So it really doesn't take that long when they're these small pieces, maybe 10 minutes or so, but just watch it, check it with a fork. After you're done, you'll pull it out, drain it, and toss them around a little bit so that they get these rough edges, because these rough edges are what are gonna go crispy when we roast them. So these potatoes are going to be roasted with olive oil, salt, and some chopped fresh sage. But we're also going to be doing that fancy element of a little fried sage on top of the potatoes, which is gonna be delectable. So once your potatoes have drained and cooled, they are ready for you to prepare to roast. So I'm just going to put them right on my roasting tray. So with these, we are going to add some fresh chopped sage. Sage is a very sacred plant. You know how we use sage to kind of clear the energy of a space. Imagine how good it is for you when you ingest it in your body, and the way that it can really clear and just open up any blockages in the body. Then we're just going to really finely chop these so that we can get all of the potatoes to touch the beautiful sage. We're also going to pour, of course, a good healthy drizzle of olive oil or whatever fat you want to use. You could use ghee, you could use butter, regular butter, you could use an animal fat if you have that. I know that people make roasted potatoes in like duck fat and then it's just decadent. Now these potatoes have been boiled in salt, but we want to add a little bit more salt to help really make sure we bring out their flavor, and it also just helps with the cooking process. So a good pinch of salt. And mix these up with our hands. Always get in there with your hands if you can. Like, God gave us hands for a reason. Pretty often, they end up being the best tools we have. Make sure all the potatoes have some space, and we're going to put this in the oven at 400 degrees for about 20 to 30 minutes, depending on the size of the potatoes you have. And halfway through, we're going to pull them out and toss them a little bit. The last thing we're gonna put in the oven here is a roasted bulb of garlic. I will take the entire bulb, chop off the top so that all of the cloves are exposed. Tin foil, parchment paper, always parchment paper too, because we really just don't want our food to be raw touching aluminum foil. It's not very good for us. Pinch of salt, a glug of olive oil. You can put any herbs in here that you like. Heck, let's put a couple sage leaves in with it, just to make sure it really infuses with it, just because we have it. Wrap up your garlic bundle. Keep it right side up, and you're just gonna place this right in the oven with your potatoes. Oh my gosh, y'all, this smells amazing. So here's the secret with really, really good roasted potatoes. Yes, you want to take them out halfway through and toss them around, but the real secret is you want to mush them down just a little bit to create more surface area so there's more areas to get crispy. So you can use a fork or a potato masher, whatever you have. First, let's just toss them around, get any sides that were facing downward to face upward. Make sure it all is coated again in the oil. Just squish these down a little bit. All of these little bits that come off are gonna become like crunchy, crispy. So for the fried sage leaves, all we wanna do is heat up a cooking oil, one that does well in high heat, ideally avocado oil or grapeseed oil. Heat it up slowly on the stove and test one leaf out. If when you drop it in, it starts immediately curling up and bubbling, you know that it's ready. Let them fry up for just half a minute or so and then drain them on a paper towel. It's gonna be a very nice little fancy crispy element. Once you've taken your sage leaves off and just are letting them drain on the paper towel, just give them a little bit of space. Those are gonna be these wonderful little crispy bits that we add on top of our roasted potatoes. Our potatoes are looking crispy. They are smelling amazing. I pulled the roasted garlic out to cool so that we can squish it on top. It is time to assemble. Oh no! Y'all. That looks really good. So what we're gonna do, we have our roasted garlic, which we open up. It looks beautiful, it's nice and squishy. Let it cool, or if it's still a little bit too hot, you can use a tool. We're basically just gonna squeeze this bulb and all of the cloves are going to come out like melted butter. Wow. If you're a little bad boy, have a snack right now. Oh, wow. Mix these up a bit with that roasted garlic, which basically just spreads among the potatoes. Then we can put these in a plate. I don't know about you, but potatoes are some of the most grounding things to eat, and I think mixed with the grounding quality of sage, it's very appropriate. Then we will drizzle just a little bit of fresh olive oil, just for good measure. A pinch of some flaky salt. And top it with our beautiful fried sage. Once these drained, they became nice and crispy, so they're just this lovely extra sage crunch. Very luxury, very fancy. And they're really easy to do too. Don't be nervous about frying. It takes doing it once to feel confident. And there we have our beautiful sage roasted potatoes. Oh my gosh, I want them. They're very hot, but I want them. So I'm gonna have one. The fried sage leaf. Aww. Oh, that's really good. Mmm, and that roasted garlic with, oh, I love potatoes. Mmm. Oh, that's so good. So, my friends, this is but one way that we can use sage in a beautiful, savory dish. If you give this a try, let me know. How did it go? What did you switch up? What kind of fat did you use? Do you have any favorite ways to use sage in a savory or sweet dish? Let us know. Let us share ideas. This is just a beautiful flavor combination. I really recommend you try it. Thank you so much for joining us. This is a very special series and a very special ingredient. As always, alf sahtan, and we will see you in the next one. Yeah.